Atul suds quiasik ikilvuts you. May the Force serve you. I never thought I'd actually be able to find practical use for an ancient Sith translator, but the Force works in mysterious ways. And by the way, you'll hopefully understand by the end of this why I use the Sith variant on the phrase, "May the Force be with you." Right, last full-length video for the month, let's go. But first, definition time. As anyone who's watched pretty much any of my videos before should know, I've defined the word power to mean simply the ability to do. And if you know anything about Star Wars beyond the flashy lasers and explosions, then you'll know the Force to be analogous to the impersonal aspects of nature. And if you're familiar with the Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR 2 game, or at least the character of Kreia, you might have already recognized the title's phrasing. However, I don't mean to dive into the esoterica of the Force, as there's already a video out there called The Philosophy of Kreia, which I'll link below, that breaks down the nature of the whole expanded Star Wars meta in real philosophical terms so completely, so utterly. There's really nothing I can think to add to it in that regard. So instead, I'm going to be focused on the symmetry between the dynamics of the Force to our real-world power structures. Or, in layman's terms, I mean to illustrate for you how human society binds and connects and controls our individual actions in order to satisfy its own will, just as the Force casts its totalitarian net over the Star Wars galaxy. And I do mean illustrate, as in the interest of not making this an hour-long doctoral thesis, I'll be relying on images to speak a greater proportion of my words for me. And in that spirit, here I've borrowed this handy little diagram from a guy called Officer Cameron on Reddit, which you can pause and view in detail if you wish, upon which I have based my own summarily pared-down version, which you can view on screen at present. In both, you can see clearly the dynamic push and pull between not only the living and cosmic sides of the Force, but also the light and dark sides, and it's the former that I'll primarily be focused on, as it is the cycle between the living body of the Force, the aspect from which the Jedi and Sith derive their powers, and its cosmic engine, the cosmological source pool from which all life in the Star Wars galaxy is generated, and to which its energy will inevitably return when it dies. Now, if you recall from my video discussing midichlorians, which was second only in its controversy to a video in which I referred to communism as just secular Christianity, I stated there are two different schools of metaphysical thought governing the Force's nature. The first, original trilogy version, embodying the Hindu-Buddhist concept of Brahma, wherein the light side is the totality of the Force and the dark side is a cancerous aberration, and the other, post-prequel and midichlorian, relaying the Taoist concept of the yin-yang, wherein the light and dark are both just equal and opposite aspects of a dyadic whole. In both cases, the cycle you're seeing on screen is what is being referenced, whether knowingly or not, whenever characters refer to the will of the Force. As the Force is a function of life, and vice versa, it is its etheric symbiote, generating and conducting its operations, just as insomuch as its own energy is generated and conducted by living cells. This eternal wheel of life, death and renewal, birth and rebirth, time and again, is all the will of the Force. Energy begetting matter and vice versa. Thought begetting motion begetting more thought, forever a river marching on, forever trapping its occupants in a recursive loop they can never escape, and any attempt to do so gets them branded as corrupt and evil. That's why the dark side masters always look as sick and twisted as they do. The Force itself molests their flesh, attempting to recall itself from the will that means to supplant its own. And this is why Kreia is so renowned within the Star Wars fandom. Not only is she one of the best-written female characters in all of fiction, she has recognized the core contradiction in both the Jedi and the Sith orders, that in order to truly gain power or sovereignty over themselves, to truly reach enlightenment, they would have to renounce their ties to the Force, and so give up their power, which neither side will ever do. And so the cycle continues. To help you better understand the problem, here are the Jedi and Sith codes. Again, you can pause and read them if you will, but I would draw your attention particularly to their final lines. If you read them carefully, you'll notice that they are axiomatic contradictions, not just of each other, but of themselves. For those who still don't see, let me explain. You'll note that the Jedi Code states as objective fact that there is no such thing as emotion, ignorance, passion, chaos, or death. You'll note also that this is objectively absurd. In the real world, this is how all religions make their bones, by presupposing morality for reality, and in so doing conflating their own will, their own ideas of what is right and natural, over that of nature, of reality itself. all the while purporting to do the opposite, and the Sith are no better. For though they outright exalt their own will and the freedom that comes from it, in the very last line of their code they undermine their own ideals by shackling themselves to the very Force whose will they sought to be free of in the first place. By saying that the Force shall free me, the Sith admit that they cannot have agency or power without the Force. And to say that there is no death, there is the Force, implies that rather than liberating themselves from death or suffering, the Jedi have merely traded one set of chains for another. As I said in my video breaking down why woke progressivism is, by technical definition, a religion, people idolize that which rules them, Allah the Jedi Order, and venerate that which they believe empowers them, Allah the Sith. The irony is that it's all a convoluted trap. All we achieve by trying to supplant our idols, our gods or nature or whatever have you, is just making ourselves slaves to our own devices. Now I said I was going to translate that to real human society. Here we come to that part of the video. Consider every powerful or liberated person you've ever heard of. Now ask yourself, is that admiration or envy you're feeling? Is it really the person you're idolizing, or is it their wealth, status, and the societal leverage that comes with those things you wish you could emulate? Think about it in the context of what the word power really means. Could any tycoon have made their fortune without the backup of an entire industry? Where would an academic or scientist be without the university funding their research? What would any Wall Street wolf do without the stock market? What would an executive be without a corporation to manage? What is a priest without his church? Are you seeing the pattern yet? No king rules alone is a lesson many a king and emperor and politician throughout history has had to learn the hard way. To rely on others for your power, to pin your personal success or ego upon the compliance of a functionally abstract thing that's beyond your control is a catastrophe waiting to happen. Just ask Yoda or Darth Vader. Do yourself a favor and take Krya's advice. Give up the Force. Don't try to control it or make yourself its blind, obedient puppet. Don't let your destiny or identity ride on something that can be lost, or someone else who can walk away from you. For, as another man much wiser than myself once said, show me what you love more than your freedom. I'll show you the metal of your chains. That's all I have for you today. Stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see all you next time. Atul yul okshi tuti ijudasar.